there has been this fascinating conversation around Spurs and their game against Manchester City and the concept of Spurs fans wanting their own team to lose against City, because if they were to beat City, it would open up the door for Arsenal to win the title. I can't get my head around that. I was even having a debate with my kids in the car on the school run, and my kids, the understanding actually of the Spurs position. But my view was, and still is, if you're a supporter of a big club, you always want to win. Mm-hmm. Winners always want to win. Mm-hmm. I remember going on a trip in my day job with the Daily Mirror. It was a football trip on a European tour. I was getting onto the plane, the club plane. I was talking to a player, and that player had lost in a friendly. Mm-hmm. And he was upset. Absolutely.
Vex.
And I said, it was just a friendly. And he said, no. This club has to be winning every game. Mm-hmm. Whether it was a game of drafts or checkers, if you're in America watching this.
American viewers, shout out.
American viewers. But you always want to win. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the mentality of a big club. You don't get caught up in the small things that surround this kind of thing. You have that mentality. So I'm fascinated that any Spurs fan would care about what the ramifications of defeat would be.
Which is why I would question whether Spurs are a big club. But that's a different, whether they're a big club or not is a different discussion for a different day.
Like that. You're an Arsenal fan.
No, it's not because I'm an Arsenal fan. I just think
the objective.
This idea that Spurs are a big club is
massive club.
We'll do that next week. I mean, big clubs. Forget win trophies. At least compete for trophies.
So Dan behind the glass is laughing. Don't be laughing, Dan behind the glass. Like, they are a big club. Don't do that.
They're a big club in name. They're not. And anyway, we'll do that one.
Okay,
we'll do that one another time. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you find it difficult to understand why any Spurs fan would want to indulge in a conversation around losing the game. It's because a lot of football discourse nowadays is through the prism of social media and banter. That's the reason why Spurs fans, and not all, we must make it clear that, and at the point of recording, when people are watching this, Spurs might have won the game 3-0 by now, by the way. So let's just put that caveat in there as well. But I think a lot of football discourse now is had on Twitter, on fan channels, on podcasts. And there are a lot of Arsenal fans out here. There's a lot of us out here. And there's a lot of Arsenal fans that are idiots. Let's have it right. A lot of Arsenal fans talk rubbish and talk loud. If we win the title this weekend, Darren, we're going to be loud. And if you are a Tottenham supporter, not only have you seen Arsenal's glory years 20 years ago and have to live through that when Spurs were definitely a small club, and see Arsenal win 3 titles, competing with United 4 titles year in, year out, Champions League 20 years on the spin. You've seen Arsenal become a banter club for 15 to 20 years, still come back, win a title before you do anything serious. So as a Spurs fan, I understand why those that indulge in the whole, who's the bigger club in North London? What colour is North London? I understand for those fans, the idea of seeing all the fan channels, all the podcasts, all the talk online for the next 12 months around Arsenal being champions will be very difficult to take. Never mind your Arsenal friend at work, your Arsenal friend at college, your Arsenal next door neighbour. So for those fans, I understand why the thought of Arsenal winning the title is unbearable. But I agree with you. If let's flip it. If it was Arsenal in the situation where we hadn't won anything for years, but we had a chance to get top 4, but that meant conversely we helped Spurs possibly win the title, I wouldn't get caught up in what Spurs are doing. As painful as it would be to hear Spurs champions, and it's going to be painful to win the title for them, let's have it right. But I think the focus, and this is where we bring in Ange Postecoglou's position, in that we have to focus on ourselves. We have to build our club. We have to focus on how do we become good. If our existence is purely seen through the prism of we're Arsenal's little brother and we've got to just give them a little jab every now and again, you're never going to be the big brother.
Well, this is the thing, and I think that eventually you don't grow up. We grow out of so many things that 15, 20 years ago we were preoccupied by. But eventually you get to a point where you think, that's a minor. That to me doesn't really matter. And I think that you have to get, as a club, you have to be there. And I've covered Spurs when Andre Villas-Boas tried. He got caught up with it, and he kind of poked fun at Arsenal when I think Spurs were 8 points ahead of them in the race for the top four, and then they blew it, and Arsenal overtook them and ended up in the Champions League. But since then, Pochettino has said, "I'm not interested in all of that. I want to get this club into the top four and turn them into a superpower." And he did. He got them into the Champions League on a regular basis, got them to the final in 2018. Okay, they didn't invest enough in the side at the time, but now that Postecoglou's come along, he's trying to do the same things. I get the intensity of the rivalry, but we've got to look forward. Otherwise, if I'm always looking in their garden, we're both going to have bad gardens, and other people are going to basically move on way ahead of us. I
think for those Spurs fans that have that mindset, Ange Postecoglou's press conference, it was on Monday, I think it was, where he said what he said about, I don't care about all that, we're going to try to win the game. And Villa's draw with Liverpool on Monday night is the worst thing for those fans, because it means that Spurs go into this motivated to win the game against City. And again, by the time people are hearing this podcast, that game would probably have come and gone. So we'll know the result of that. But I also
the key thing about that, it was so important. Spurs could not have gone into the City game wanting a draw. They had to win both games. So the City game and their final game of the season at the weekend. They have to, if they want to get into the top four. So the gauntlet is down for them. They have to try to win. And Spurs fans can't say it's a win-win couldn't say it's a win-win if they'd have lost or whatever, because they want to be in the Champions League. And if you want to be in the Champions League, if you want to aspire to big things, look forward, stay in your particular lane, and don't worry about what's going on elsewhere.
And also, a little bit like Man United fans last year trying to stop City win the treble, Spurs had their chance to hurt Arsenal a couple of weeks ago. They had their chance to stop Arsenal in the title, and they blew it. So if we go on to, and there's no guarantee, I mean, it's probably likely, but there's no guarantee that if Spurs win against City, that Arsenal win the title. They've still got to beat Everton, which is, it's likely, but it's not as binary as Spurs get a draw against City, Arsenal then become champions. I just think Spurs have got to focus on themselves. It will be painful. It's easy for us to say because we're not Spurs fans. I've got to live in that bubble of Arsenal fans chucking it. And let's have it right again. I'll be chucking it. I will be loud. I will be outside. But I think the bigger thing just my final point would be, I think it may go in the long run against Postecoglou in terms of the fan base. I like him, but I think his position that we are focusing on ourselves and we by default help Arsenal, so be it. I think if results don't go well next season, Spurs will remember that. Spurs fans that are of that mindset, I think they'll remember that. And I think it's silly, but I think they will hold that against him later on.
In what way?
Well, look, Postecoglou can't be expected to go out there and lose a game, right? So he's got to try and win the game. But I think him being so bullish about it, I think it's wound up those Spurs fans that would rather a defeat. If he'd have been a bit more neutral and said, look, it's another game, we're going to do our best, move on, they might have been like, cool, that's neutral. But him to say, I don't care about Arsenal, I don't care if they win the title, we're going to win, I think only triggers those Spurs fans that are like, all right, mate, calm down. We know you want to win the game, but you're talking like you're really going for it. I think no Spurs fans will be triggered by that.
I don't think any Spurs fan over 25 seriously wants their own team to lose.
I think there were some.
Honestly, I think there were some. You cannot be a mature Spurs fan.
Oh, but I agree with that.
Own team.
I agree with that, but there
any
are some.
Spurs, if you have a big club mentality, you want your team to win.
It wouldn't be so bad if Spurs also had a history of recent winning trophies. I can understand it if Spurs, because you might be like, on this one occasion, we'll chuck it, but Spurs don't win anything. So for them to do anything, I'm with you. I'm largely with you.
Listen, you're shouting loudly about this. Shout me loudly.
By the way, do you think Spurs will get a result?
Well, there's a fascinating stat around this match. Do you want me to tell you the stat? 57 games that City have played over the last 3 seasons between January and May. And in those 57 games, they've won 44 of them and lost only 4, right? And 2 of those games were away to Spurs. And that's an incredible stat.
It's a good stat.
It's all right.
It's a good stat, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Even if it's like 3 of the 4 or 4 of the 4, that's an incredible stat. 2 of the 4 is a good stat.
They're a little bit of a bogey team for them. Now, it might well be that by the time you've watched this, City have smashed them
4-0,
up.
it doesn't really matter. And which is important as well. Spurs could play really, really well and still lose the match. So
yeah, that's absolutely fine. And obviously, if Spurs do lose, I'm counting on Dan behind the glass to cut this bit out.
You keep this in, Dan. You keep every second of this inside.
But the point being that Spurs are something of a bogey club for City, so they will be properly focused going into this one. And if they do win convincingly, it won't be a surprise. But if they were to lose, there's a stat for you.
I think it'll be a draw.
Yeah, which will make the final day very interesting indeed, because it could be a shootout between the two clubs as to who's going to.
Well, because this is our last pod until the Premier League season commences. Do you think City will end up champions?
I do now. Okay. I do, yeah. Just because all the players have come back, they're all peaking at the right time. Haaland's back in the groove. De Bruyne, so much in the tank now compared to the first half of the season. Foden scores goals. Gvardiol's popped up and he's become the Vincent Kompany.
What about your incredible stat? It says that,
listen, they don't have to do it against Spurs. They can do it on the final day.
Listen, if Arsenal win the title this weekend, this pod next weekend, Troy's going to be here, Hugh's going to be here, you're going to be here, and I'm definitely going to be here. We're going to have some fun.
If Arsenal lose...
I'm away. I'm busy next Tuesday.
Listen, it would make Pep Guardiola the first manager ever to win 4 Premier League titles. He would be the top boy. Top boy were winners at the BAFTA Awards. See what I did there. Congratulations to Jasmine Jobson for picking up that award. She has been spectacular in the series, and she's a phenomenal actress anyway.
I think they won 2. BAFTAs.
They won for the best drama and one for her as well. And it's a real recognition of what has been hard work put in by the entire cast and crew on that show. We spoke on the podcast a few weeks ago about the genre and how we wanted to see more than that. But that isn't the fault of Top Boy and those their creators. Where do we stand on that now?
Top Boy is great TV, but bad for the culture. And people can define what culture means, but that's been my position on Top Boy from the first time I saw it. I watched Top Boy when it was on Channel 4. I watched Top Boy the first season, it was on Netflix, and then I stopped, so I've not seen the latest season on Netflix. And look, when we discussed this, we were talking about the best black films of all time, and we kind of went into a discussion around depiction of black people across film and drama. And I said that I don't and I won't watch Top Boy. And it caused a lot of discussion amongst the comments. Half the people were coming at me and saying, it's you should support it. It's really good. Other people were saying they agreed and they don't or will not watch it anymore. And I want to say, first of all, congratulations to Top Boy for winning their 2 BAFTAs. I don't have any ill will towards the programme, the makers, or anybody connected with the programme. My only issue with Top Boy was, and it's the same, it's that I would like to see a wider plethora of programming with people that look like me in them. Now, and I want to quote, I want to shout out the comedian Travis J, who's a pal of mine, who rightfully in the comments replied with a list of programs where there is a bit more diversity and a wider spread of black, and in particular dark-skinned black actresses and actors. I think that's important as well. One being Dreaming Mask Black. And I want to big up Ajani Salman, who created and stars in that. So there are examples of other programs that do well. I just want more, and I think we should have more. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, and I hope the TV industry and those that are making and pitching programs are pitching a wider range of programming for us to enjoy.
What would you say to those people who say that if it were the other way around and we had the plethora of those productions with those individuals in them, we would all be calling for something that shows the grim reality on the road, on the streets.
So there's a really good, well, first of all, I would say that we've had those programs for a decade now, but also there's a really good, there's a good article in The Guardian this morning, I've forgotten the writer's name, forgive me, who basically says that he sensed the snobbery from the BAFTAs regarding awarding Top Boy those two awards. And his argument in the piece is that it does depict a reality of what's happening in this country, where black people reside and frequent, and that reality should be shown. You know, why is it any different to The Crown and other programs that depict other communities' realities? Fine, but my thing is, I go back to my initial point. I just want to see more, a wider spread of programming. And people talk about, oh yeah, but that's a reality that's happening in the UK. It is, but why has that got to be the forefront of what we are showing, producing, and televising? Why? Why has that got to be the biggest program? The biggest program with a black cast in it in this country probably is Top Boy. If I can't think of anything else. Why is the biggest program on British TV with a black cast that for me is a bit concerning?
Would people
even though it is real? I've never denied that is a reality of what's happening. My only rebuttal, my only challenge is there are other realities happening as well. There are other stories to be told as well. Let's tell those stories too.
Would some people look and say, well, hang on, we've had comedy, we've had Desmond's, we've had the Fosters,
hasn't got to be comedy.
Real McCoy.
Hasn't got to be comedy.
What does it have to be?
Why can't we see sci-fi? Why can't we see love stories? Why can't we see animation? Why can't we see other forms of television?
Listen, I'm being deliberately...
No, I know you are. Why can't we see soaps?
Yeah.
Why is the only thing we can see is dramas with black boys shotting on the block?
But then are we making those things?
Well, this is why I call on the TV industry, because I believe those pictures are going in. I just think the TV industry thinks that that's what people want to see. Yes. No. That's what white England wants to see. Oh, those black boys in Hackney and in Toxteth and in
Cheetham Hill.
Doing a bit of dealing and a bit of fighting. I don't want to see that. No, black people that I know in the main don't want to see that, because a lot of black people that I know have lived that. They know that. They know it happens. No one's denying that it happens. I'm not even denying Top Boy's right to exist. I'm just asking for a wider group. Can we just get a pizza that's got more than just chicken on it? Can I get a little pineapple? Can I get a little onion? Can I get a little tomato? Can I get a variety on my pizza, please? I don't want just chicken on my pizza. So I'm not saying Top Boy. And the other argument, just I know we've got to move on, is people say to me, oh yeah, but Top Boy offers a lot of employment to black creatives, which it does. It does. I know for a fact a lot of the cast, a lot of the crew are black. So there's employment there for black creatives. I'm fine with that. I'm not anti-Top Boy. I'm just pro a variety of other types of programming.
Yeah, and I think it's a very relevant debate.
So congratulations to them, but I just want more
variety.
Just to give me a variety, man.
Now I'm watching The Gentleman, which has got a fantastic ensemble cast. Vinnie Jones is in it, Ray Winstone's in it. It's set in a country estate, but it's got underneath the country estate, it's got a farm producing exotic products, shall we say. And there are lots of twists and turns within it.
Is it good?
It's a Guy Ritchie production.
Yes.
It's very well put together. But obviously, if you're watching this and you were going to recommend a box set to me, because I finished it now and I don't know what I need to watch. So if you're going to recommend something to me, get them in by all means. What's the other thing we're going to discuss on the show tonight?
Let's talk a little bit about Baby Reindeer.
Baby Reindeer is a very interesting one for me.
This is your talk me or talk, by the way.
This is indeed, yeah. I think we share this, don't we? Because I've just been very uncomfortable with the idea of allowing a platform to somebody who has allegedly made the life of somebody else a nightmare. And I do wonder whether we would have given that platform to a man who had made a woman's life a misery.
I hadn't thought of that. I think the answer is no. I'm going to go with no. Baby Reindeer, I finished watching this last week, and for those that haven't seen it, it's an interesting watch. It's at times a very difficult watch. It gets quite dark. But I think what it started off as a man trying to show the world that men can be stalked too, and their lives can be can be ripped apart by it as well, which is a genuine life experience to want to depict, has turned into so much more than that now. There's questions around, I don't want to do any spoilers, but 3 or 4, it takes a dark turn. So that brings up issues around that. It brings up issues that you've just flagged that I hadn't even thought of that angle, in terms of why are we giving air to a woman who allegedly stalked a man and made a man's life hell, and would that be the same if it was the other way around? And then it comes to one thing I was interested in was also, why did Richard Gadd, I think his name is, the comic, why would he want to play himself in this?
Well, there might be a catharsis in that. I don't really have any issue with him playing himself in it, because I think psychologically there might be some kind of release if you go through a difficult exercise, a difficult experience. There might be a variety of ways that you can get the closure of being able to go through it again, but on your terms, and there could be an element of control in that. I don't think there's any culpability on his part, and I think part of what has made me so uncomfortable about the whole process last week, the week in which the alleged identity of the woman behind it was put into the public domain, was that it did unleash perspectives and views that I felt quite uncomfortable with. I don't have any personal truck with the individuals who managed to sit down with the person, because you know they okay, well, that is what they do, and we live in a world where people go hunting around for stuff like that. But I do have a general issue with putting people who appear, in my opinion, vulnerable to air. I think that there are difficulties around that don't sit well with me, and I just think that we live in a very cynical world, a very horrible world in some respects, and I just think that targeting somebody who's been through such an incredible trauma, and you're right, the series is incredible. That's the only word. I don't want to say entertaining, because I don't get any entertainment about someone reliving a nightmare. But I do think that the idea that you would attack that person for telling a truth, which is that it isn't men get stalked too, it's that men have been stalked for a long time, but there's been a greater spotlight on it being the other way around, and men being seen to be the threat. And there'll be lots of men who will identify with that. My worry with that would they be more reticent to come out when they see the way that the guy who's told his story is being attacked? There's so many levels of uncomfortable around this that just left me wanting to talk about it on here.
Yeah, I think my kind of brief and final point would be, like, if what he is saying is true, and that the story is a complete.
Why'd you say if?
Because there's been reports that parts of it are exaggerated.
It's his truth, and also it's fiction. So we watch a million things they give us the rider, as he did, based on a true story, which means that you have to embellish elements to actually.
No, but some people are questioning whether some parts are even true.
Yeah, but I listen. I think any true story you ever see on TV contains elements that aren't true, because essentially, if you were to put the real truth, it's a bit like a press conference. So I go to a press conference, I tell you everything that happened in a press conference. There are some very boring bits in that press conference, and really what happens is it goes through a process to make it palatable to be consumed.
Out the bits that are just a bit not interesting. I'm talking about people are questioning some of the things that happen in it. Did they actually happen? I'm talking about embellishing or dramatizing. But my point being, if it's a total and accurate depiction of his experience and what actually happened, I hope it doesn't put anybody off seeking help or going to authorities that feel like my life is being ruined by this, because there's definitely a kind of masculine element to not wanting to say that a woman has been following me because of the ridicule that comes with that, and men can't be abused, men can't be followed, just deal with it, man up, all of that. So I hope that doesn't I hope that this does the opposite. I hope it makes men who are struggling feel like I have to speak out about this. The woman in question, and whether you know whether she's questioning the woman that we've seen on Piers Morgan's show anyway. There's been questions
I thought
about.
we were going to get through this without naming him.
No, but I think they've got to name him though, because I know there's thoughts about him and what he's doing, which we'll leave to one side. But I think the woman that features on his program, there's doubts around the validity in her account, and she denies everything, and it's just all messy. It's all really, really messy, and I think we're getting away from the problem. The problem is person A, whether that is, has made persons B's life a mess, and that needs to be addressed. How it's been addressed has been a bit crude.
If you've been affected by any of the themes that we're talking about, obviously please do get help. We're men, but we need to speak, we need to be honest, confront our vulnerabilities, and I think that if there was something good that came out of it, it was the willingness of the person at the centre of the series to be honest and open about how he was feeling, so that he could get some closure.